hot shop floor. But to know a little bit more about what's being made here today is we're going to be blowing into this beautiful mold we have down here. Now, KT works on some of these molds for over 40 hours. It can only be used once before they're no good. So we're going to continue working on these. We have this beautiful color down here. I believe we're going to work on a separate color before we enter this mold down here. Down on the left-hand side, we're going to be doing something quite different and unique. We're going to be creating a house. Now, if you're wondering about, what do you mean a house out of glass? Well, we can see some of the patterning we see here. We're going to be blowing into the molds that you see on our top screen and on our pedestal. And so we are going to be blowing air and blowing glass into this mold we have, but let's check out the actual pattern. If you're wondering, what will that pattern of the house look like? Well, on our top screen, we're going to get that up for you. We see this beautiful, gorgeous pattern down here made out of flat glass and pulled cane. Notice it looks like brick and mortar. That's the exact idea behind that. Later on, we're going to roll on the surface of that pattern you see up there, and it's going to look like a house. And when we blow into our mold. So it's going to be a quite unique process we see here today. Now, this cup that we have here, again, we're going to use later on, I believe on a separate date. But this is a good way that the team warms up, that they can kind of get ready for the full day that we're going to be having. So this cup will be broken free, and it's going to sit in a annealing oven. All glass throughout history must go through this annealing cycle, and that is a cycle that will bring it back to room temperature. Unfortunately, if we leave it out here, it's going to get too cold too fast, and it will break, it'll crack, and even explode. So if we want to prevent it from breaking, we will slowly cool it down. We see Greg down here has suited up in a heat protective layer with some Kevlar gloves. We're going to break the cup free. Greg will hold the cup in his Kevlar gloves and walk into the oven. So I mentioned that we're going to be entering the mold, but to just give you an idea of what the pattern will look like, we have one right here that we're seeing now. I believe this one will be broken free. I believe the glass will be broken free later on the date. But this is what the pattern can look like. And as we see this pattern down here, again, this is the ultimate design that we're going for, essentially using different colors and different techniques. We'll get that similar process we see here on this pedestal. Now, before we move on to any more glass making stuff, I do want to touch on the basis of the equipment that we have here on the hot shop floor, just so we all understand what's going on down here, where the glass is being pulled out from, and what we're entering. Essentially, the glass itself is being pulled out of the furnace. Now, behind this door lies a crucible, and that crucible is where the hot glass sits at. The furnace is approximately 2100 degrees, or about the same temperature as molten lava. It gets quite hot down here. And it's essentially like having a mini volcano here at the hot shop floor where we can gather all the massive glass. Essentially, all the glass that you see on this hot shop floor at one point or another came out of this furnace, besides the color. Once the glass exits the furnace, it begins to cool down rapidly. Now, to continue to shape the molten mass, we will enter a glory hole. The glory hole is a chamber we use to reheat the glass itself. It's slightly hotter than the furnace at 2300 degrees. Another piece of equipment that we're using is called the garage. Now it's this piece of equipment we see down here, and it's a temporary place where we can store the glass and keep it warm. Inside of here we have the solid color that we're preheating. If we try to use the color right away, it doesn't work that way. It just simply will end up on the ground. I have tried before. You need to preheat it essentially. We also have these molds, the house molds sitting inside of there, just to ensure that it will be nice and warm when it meets the hot glass. So the rods that we have here in the hot shop floor, they're made out of stainless steel, which is a pretty poor conductor of heat. We see down here using a pipe cooler, which is just cold the water that we run on the surface of the rod, which in turn cools it down. If you take a close inspection of the rods, you can begin to see where the discoloration begins. We're always turning the rod where it's still nice and shiny, but towards that tip, it becomes dull gray and black. And notice even Dan, his hand's directly behind that area. That's the danger zone. Chances are that area will be hot, so we will always keep our hands away from that area. Notice that there's like a weird noise in here, right? That like that weird white noise. So that's the blower we are using here in the hot shop to get the appropriate heat. So we see down here, we have that solid color. Now, Courtney has snipped a little bit of that color, and you're wondering, well, why we got rid of color. The reason why is sometimes there's a little bit of debris that can stick on the color. Instead of using that, we're just gonna get rid of it. Now, we're kind of gearing up to fill one of these gems, but I do want to show you exactly what the final product will be. So as we see that action, we're going to switch over to some slides so we can just see some of KT's work, and we can begin to understand what all this process you see here will eventually become. Again, KT takes up to 40 hours on each mold. And on the top screen, we're going to run through some slides so we can understand a little bit more about KT and her artwork that she creates. So the process that you're going to see here in the center is going to get very interesting. Essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to combine these two colors, and each rod has two colors. So there's going to be 4 colors on one. Then that will be the color that will go on top of a white. That way that white will essentially be a nice base, a nice white base that we can essentially build upon. So Greg down here will take the solid color, the 2 colors, we're going to join them together. As we watch the live glass making, I always recommend the top balcony. It's a great place to view the live glass making. So as this process continues down in the center, I do want to talk a little bit about what's going on down on the left-hand side. We have Dan Friday, extremely talented artist. Right now, essentially, we're creating this tube. Notice down on this end, we're blowing air through the blowpipe to expand the bubble that we have. Dan has created a constriction or a break-off point, that small little crease or crevice you see towards the beginning part of the glass, and that will be the break-off section. The area we add a little bit of water to break it free. So down on this end, we're going to be going into the mold we have here. So we're going to go ahead and get ready. Dan will come right on over, straight to the top. We'll begin to fill the mold bottom to top. To break this piece free, we'll add a little bit of water. Tanner has suited up in a pea protective layer. The next step is to set this piece into the annealer down on your right-hand side. KT, our visiting artist, is standing by that annealer with degree number 4. It's sitting at 920 degrees, and this piece will stay in that oven for the next 24 hours to cool down. Unfortunately, if we leave glass out here, it can get too cold too fast. It can break, crack, and even explode. So if we want to prevent the piece from breaking, we'll have to slowly cool it down. And down in the center, we're seeing the color application. Greg came over, solid color, placed it right on top of the bubble. Now this is a very fancy pattern that we will use later on in the process. So down here in the center, we're working on this pattern, a very old Italian calzedone effect. Essentially, it's just a marble, a lot of colors mixed in together. We're going to use that later on here today. So essentially, it's just a very fancy pattern, a lot of different colors, more of a marble natural effect we're going for. So the glass itself comes about 45 minutes north of Seattle. It's called Spectrum Glass Nugget. That's the glass that we're melting here at the Museum of Glass. And it looks like a little ice cube, a little pellet. Unfortunately, it is sharp, so I'm not allowed to hand it out to the audience. But it is essentially an ice cube. It is soda lime glass. Soda lime glass being the most common type of glassware there is. Chances are any glassware in your home is made from a similar. Besides that, ours is specially formulated for offhand glass making. All that means is our glass is specifically formulated to stay at a molten state for a longer period of time. The recipe is a secret, only known to them. And I know it's like very important, that recipe, because it's a lot of glass makers do like this cullet a lot because it just has such a long working time. Nope, the colors also buy separately from a manufacturer. Most colors made overseas, just because they are working with a lot of different metals. Specifically to make coloring glass, we're adding different metals of the periodic table of elements. So different metals will produce a different color. We might use uranium in glass to create a glow-in-the-dark green glass, or just simple cobalt to create blue glass. Gold in glass can create red and pink glass. So it specifically depends on the metals, and the metals are available around the area. So the way that they do it is that here at the museum we have two furnaces. They both hold clear glass. In those factories, they have a bunch of different furnaces melting different colors, and then they essentially will create bars out of that. If we try to do that here at the museum, we could only use one color. So let's say we add cobalt to our furnace. That means everything that we create here will be cobalt blue. It might be cool for a while, and yeah, but after a while, it might get a little old. And so by melting clear glass, we're giving ourselves the ability to use a full range of a color palette rather than one specific color. And those furnaces that make the glass, they have about like 10 furnaces. And then once the color's dried up, they will load it up, use a different color. But yeah, when making color, it's also very corrosive to glass. Here at the museum, that's why we stay away from that, just because you would have to replace the furnace every few years, rather than our furnace has been running about for 7 years straight. Actually, I believe 8 years now. We believe we can get about 10 years out of them. Yep, the furnaces you see here are powered by natural gas, which is our fuel source. We had a conversation earlier how you need a lot of oxygen to make natural gas really hot, about 2100 degrees. So notice there's like a weird sound in here, right? Like a buzzing, whirling white noise going on. So that's the blower that we use here to ensure that we get a proper temperature. Right. So we had a wonderful question. Where does glass blowing come from? Glass blowing itself originally, let me get this clear. So glass blowing itself was introduced by the blowpipe. Before that, glass making was very, very basic. They would essentially do core forming, which means they would get like dung or ceramic or pottery or something like that, and they would make a vessel. They would then stab a rod inside of it and gather glass on the surface. Once that was cool, they would get rid of the dung or whatever they used on the inside, and that would leave with the vessel. Around the height of the Roman Empire, Syrian craftsmen created the first ever blowpipe, and that essentially created what we have here today. When the Romans invaded Constantinople, they stole that idea of glass blowing. That's when it essentially began to spread around the world. And then Venetians happened to be the best glass makers because they continued that through their traditions. But again, so glass blowing itself, around the height of the Roman Empire, about 2000. Yes. Yes. Yes, essentially Venice. When they invaded Constantinople, that's when how Venetians essentially got glass making, is they essentially stole the idea from Syrian craftsmen and that general area. So the tables we have here, they're called Marver tables, and they're just steel tables. Sometimes you'll see them polished how you see here, but sometimes they're very dull. They're called Marvers because traditionally they were made out of marble, and that's where we're getting that name Marver from. Nowadays, though, it's been replaced with the steel counterpart that does the very similar thing of shaping the molten mass. Now, this table can be your best friend, but it can be your worst enemy because it sucks the heat out of the glass depending on what you're doing. How long do they last? Oh, these will last forever. I don't see these going away anytime soon. But however, marble, one of the reasons why they got rid of that, every now and then you will see them in hot shops, although it's rare. The reasons that their popularity began to decrease was they crack under enormous temperature. If I gather hot glass and I place it right on top of a slab, it will crack that slab. It's one of the major reasons why it's no longer in every single hot shop. Also is because most manufacturers will use a glaze on the surface of it, and that's actually bad to glass making because you're kind of more slipping and sliding, and you don't have as much control. What we're seeing when the color changes, that those tables are so cold that on contact, it's sucking the heat away. Doesn't matter what color we work with here in the hot shop, it will always look red and orange, and when it's colder, it'll look on that kind of blacker side, especially when it's dense. Its true color we won't see until the piece has fully cooled down properly at that 920 degrees point and slowly cooled down for a couple of hours. So that color will enter the garage, and it's going to stay nice and warm, about 1,000 degrees. Now, that's hot enough that the glass won't crack, but it's not too cold or not too hot where the glass will begin to move. So it's that perfect temperature. We're going to set it aside, but we will bring it out later on in the process. All right. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Museum of Glass. Please, let's fill up the first couple rows. Those are always the best seats. But essentially, you can sit wherever you like. I hope everyone's having a good day, right? You guys having a good day? It's Monday, though, right? It's Monday, but you're down here at the Museum of Glass, which means it's going to be a great day. So if we could fill up these first couple rows, I know we have a huge gap down here. It's totally fine. Everyone's super friendly down here. Please find your way down here. You guys are coming in for a really good time, by the way. Right? It's an amazing day. We have a lot of action going on. I know some of you probably just want to be at home playing Fortnite or something. I'm with you guys, don't worry. That's what I do after I get off of work today. But you guys are more than welcome to ask me as many questions. My name is David, and I love questions. It makes my job the best job I have because of questions. So I'm going to jump right into the glass making here in a little bit, but I want everyone kind of fill in the seats, get comfortable before we move on. All right. You guys having a good day today? Sweet. Right? It's Monday. I know, guys. I know it's Monday. You guys almost out of school, though? Yeah, almost, right? A few more weeks? Yeah, you guys are... Next week? Oh, man, it's easy for you guys. Easy sailing now, right? Oh, man, you guys are almost close. You have some summer plans? What are you guys going to do summer? You're going to go to Disneyland? Right on, man. I wish I could join you. What about you? Pismo in California. All right. Oh, man, you're going to be enjoying the sun. What about you, man? What you going to be doing? Chicago. Damn. You guys are going all around the United States. What about you? Where are you going? You're with them? All right, on. What's up? What about you guys? You guys ready for summer? I heard you guys, Thursday, your last day. Right? You guys going to be playing online? What's up? You guys going to go out of the States? You guys going to travel? Fortnite? Man, I feel you guys. I feel you guys. That's my jam, too. Anyways, again, my name is David. You guys are more than welcome to ask me as many questions. I love questions, right? I'm going to jump right into the action, but I want to start off with the equipment just so we understand, well, what's going on down here. Here at the museum, we have two furnaces. They're both holding approximately 1,000 pounds of glass. Behind this door lies a ceramic pot, essentially a crucible where the hot glass sits at. If you're wondering how hot it is, it's about 2,100 degrees. Just letting you know, that's about the same temperature as molten lava. So we see Courtney Bram down here is a professional glass maker, extremely talented. He's going to enter our furnace. Now, to gather glass, Courtney will dip the rod that he has inside the hot pool of glass. It's just like that. Courtney makes it look simple, but in fact, gathering glass can be one of the most difficult parts of glass making because it's extremely hot. We see Courtney shaping this glass, but as that goes on, I do want to introduce the glory hole. This is where all the glass is being reheated. Remember, when it exits, it begins to cool down quickly. If we want to continue to work with it, we will enter one of these glory holes, slightly hotter than the furnace, about 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. If we throw a piece of paper in there right now, it won't even catch on fire, just disintegrate, essentially on contact. That's how hot it is. And that's just the basics. That's the main equipment that we'll be using here. We also have a garage. It's a temporary place where we store glass and keep it warm. With that said, I do want to let you know on what's going on here today. Our visiting artist is none other than Katie Hancock. She's floating around the hot shop floor. I'll make sure to introduce you to her. She's a wonderful person. But with the action that's going on down here today, we're going to be filling this cage that you see here, this house cage, full of glass. We had this very fancy pattern we showed earlier. This pattern looks like brick and mortar. We'll bring over one of the little bricks that we will be using, and we're using white glass as the mortar for our bricks. But notice that it looks essentially like a brick, a red brick. We're going to be using this to build upon our base of our house. So we're going to be entering a mold. We're going to fill that mold with hot glass. And this is what the pattern will look like. You guys are seeing some pretty awesome stuff, but we're going to be using this stuff also, which is just the more fancier stuff. But notice there's a bunch of different colors in it. to catch you up on what's going down here, we have Courtney. He is using a wet pad of newspaper to shape the molten mass. We then have Greg down here, G-Man, blowing air through the blowpipe to expand the bubble that we have. So if you're wondering, how do you make a piece larger? Well, we're seeing that process down in the center. So what's going to be happening is we're going to be entering this mold right now. We're going to be making a cup first. This cup is how we're going to apply different colors together. So once we finish this cup, it's going to go away. It's going to go into our garage. At that same time, we'll start another core, and we will stuff more glass inside of this cup, and then this cup will be stuffed into another color. That way we have like 3 different colors being joined together in one piece. So I know it's a little complicated right here, but we're going to see a similar process with the piece down here. We learned a little bit about what's going on down here. We are going to be making a house out of glass. We see the brick and mortar already down here on this left-hand side. We're fusing them together, joining them together. Here very shortly, we'll roll on the surface to pick up the full pattern. Notice that we're flipping the plate. Now the glass itself lives or sits on this ceramic kiln shelf, also lined with a little bit of kiln wash to prevent the glass from sticking. The kiln wash we use here at the museum is found right about 10 minutes away. We use some natural clay from our local area as our kiln wash here at the museum. We flip the plate to ensure that the glass is being heated up evenly and we're not heating up one specific area. So notice we'll continue to flip it back and forth. We see that this is the mold we will enter later on. Down here we have the color that we made earlier. Now, this is about 4 different colors, a white color inside of it. Essentially, it's gonna be like a marble effect. We're gonna use this color, we're gonna drop it right on top of a bubble that we're gonna make here very shortly. We can see Courtney's already entering the furnace, gathering a little bit of glass. With the mass of glass that he now has, we're gonna shape that into a bubble. Once that is complete, the solid color will be placed right on top. Wow, you guys do play Fortnite, right? What's your favorite place to land? You guys have any favorite places to land in Fortnite? What's up? I land at Moisty, but you guys can tell me. It's all right. Snobby? Dusty Depot? That's like the new Tilted, I feel like. Dusty Crater? Oh, I love those moon rocks, man. They're like crack rocks. You can get anywhere real quickly. So notice down on this right left-hand side, picked up the pattern. What Dan will do is close the pattern now to ensure it's fully covered on the rod. So guys, if you want, I can have the camera like record that for you guys if you guys want. Just saying. If you guys want to do a Fortnite dance, we're all down. We stay lit down here, guys. We stay active here at the Hot Shop floor. So now that we have our a really fancy color, Courtney will spread that color evenly around that bubble. It's very important that Courtney spreads it evenly. That way, when we begin to blow air, it will we'll have an even density of color throughout our whole piece. Oh man, he has a Bape shirt, Bape sweater. Oh, he stays active. Do we have any questions from our audience? Any questions about what you're seeing? For those of you who are just joining us again, my name is David. More than happy to answer any questions. So the crucible of glass. So our furnace has been on for about over 8 years now. It's a long time. It's always constantly running. When this furnace runs out of glass, we will switch over to another furnace, and then this furnace will be filled back up with more molten glass. So they're constantly on. The glass itself looks like kind of a pellet, looks like an ice cube. This is what our furnace is filled with. When it runs a little low, we'll go ahead and charge it by placing hundreds and hundreds of these small pellets that will melt overnight. All right. I'm not. So the coordination that you see here, well, there is a hierarchy going on here in the hot shop floor, and I'm going to break that down for you. So our visiting artist is KT Hancock. Now KT's around here, the hot shop floor, and she's the person in charge. She's calling all the shots. So she's always floating around, ensuring what's created is exactly what she's looking for. Then we'll break down the first bench down here, the center of the hot shop. This is Courtney Bram, and Courtney's considered the gaffer. He's the person in charge. He's essentially calling the shots on what we make here and how it gets applied. We then have the assistants, or the pole turner. In this case, it would be Greg. Greg's job is to give the adequate heat that the gaffer wants. If Courtney says, get this extremely hot, as you can get it, that is the job of Greg. We then have another assistant, and this job is to do any small things, maybe shielding the glass, maybe giving Greg a little break, maybe getting water, whatever needs to be done. A bench usually consists of 3 minimum people. That way we have sufficient amount of hands to work on whatever we might even be blowing air at one point. That's why we want 3 people. And that's the breakdown of the first bench. Down on the left-hand side, we have yet another gaffer, but this time our gaffer is Dan Friday. Dan's job is to do or make essentially this piece for KT. We then, again, we have the pole turner. Pole turner's job is to give the adequate heat necessary. And then we have the third assistant here. We see Tanner. He was asked to bring a little bit of glass, and that's exactly what Tanner did down here. And that is essentially the breakdown of each team. There is a hierarchy going on in between them. In Glassmaking speaks all languages. All steps are identical of making a cup. So everyone knows and expects what the next step will be. Typically in the morning, they also talk about what's going to be made and the steps that they will take. That way to clear up anything that might need to happen. So if you're joining us, welcome to the Museum of Glass. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Hope you guys are having a good day, right? I heard you guys are from the same school group, right? Yes, so you guys have Thursday is your last day of school, is that correct? Next Thursday? Next Thursday. Oh my God, you guys are ready for summer? You guys ready for summer? Right, sweet. You guys have any summer plans? Basically doing nothing. I like that. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because it sounds awesome. What about you? Do you have any summer plans? No, it's totally okay. You know, do you guys wish to share your summer plans maybe? It's totally okay if you don't. I'm pretty nice though. My name is David, by the way. All right. Anyways, you guys playing Fortnite maybe? No, it's totally okay. We're not all on that bandwagon train. Anyways, my name is David again. I'm going to be your MC here today. If you guys have questions about what you're seeing, I love questions. It's like makes my job the best job ever is when I get questions. So, you have a question already? I like that. So we have an amazing AV crew down here. Notice in the top window up there, we have a kind of a clear window. That's where my homeboy Jay is working up. He's ensuring he gets the adequate heat. We even have a camera down here on the hot shop floor. We have an amazing AV crew. Anyways, to jump in right into the glass making, I'm going to introduce the basic equipment we have here, just so we can all understand what's going on here in the hot shop floor. So here we have 2 furnaces. They're both about 2100 degrees, or about the same temperature as molten lava. Now behind this door lies a giant crucible where the glass sits at. Remember, we're holding approximately 1,000 pounds of glass. On the top screen, you're seeing a diagram of the furnace where the hot glass sits at. So before I introduce the other piece of equipment, I do want to let you know what's going on. We have a cup. Greg down here has this white cup. We're going to break it free onto this ring that we have down here. That's where our camera will be focused. And Courtney down here has the solid color, the core. He's going to gather some fresh hot glass, which will act like glue. So on contact, it will fuse with our cup. And so as Courtney takes this heat, he will get rid of excess glass, but notice the shape that he's also left with. The glass has evenly coated, and we're left with the symmetrical shape. All right, so it's now this moment to do the stuff. Oh, look at that. Nice tap. Corny will now come over and begin to fill that cup bottom to top. Now, what makes a stuff so difficult is that if Corny does any sudden movement and he nicks the side of the cup, we can essentially trap a giant air bubble on the side. But look at that, man. Corny is a professional. He's been working with glass for over 25 years. He can make it look extremely easy. So the rods that we use here, they're made out of stainless steel, which is a very poor conductor of heat. Notice we're entering a pipe cooler, which is just cold water that we place the rod inside. That way the rod can cool down a little bit, and it's easier for us to handle, and we're not burning ourselves. Notice that our hands are directly where the rod is still shiny, towards the tip, where it's discolored, that dull gray and black. That's the danger zone. If we try to place our hand in that area, chances are we will get burnt. How do you blow glass? Well, we can just blow air. When we're blowing air, we're blowing about the same air pressure you use to blow out a candle. It's not a lot of air. If you're asking how do you become a glass maker, well, you can go to, there's about 50 colleges in the United States that teach glass making as an art form. And then, or if you don't want to go that route, you can go to your local studio class that way. You can take one class. Eventually, if you want to continue, you might be asked, hey, you want to help me out and assist me a little bit? You start from the bottom, but you slowly work your way up. So down on this left-hand side, to let you know what's going on, the massive glass that we have will become a cup. Very similar to the process we saw earlier, we will stuff this cup full of glass from the inside. That way we can push the color layer, instead of being on the outside, it can become on the outside. So as the live glass making continues, by the way, welcome to the Museum of Glass. As it continues, I highly recommend the top balcony. It's a great place to view the live glass making and take any pictures or videos of the action going on. We also have some artwork that was made here at this museum by our amazing Museum of Glass hot shop crew. But again, if you want to sit back, relax, enjoy the show, you are more than welcome to. Our top screen and our AV crew will ensure you get the best view. How do we get different colors? So the color itself is bought from a manufacturer. It looks like a solid color. I can pass it around. I just gotta make sure I get it back. Now, the color itself is made overseas, made by a manufacturer. And the way that they create color is just by adding different metals of the periodic table of elements. So different colors or different metals will produce a different color depending on what your favorite color is. If you don't mind me asking, what's your favorite color? Green. To create green glass, we'll use iron and chromium to create green glass. What's your favorite color? Is it a different than green? It's green also. Do we have someone else's favorite color maybe? Gold? Blue. To make blue glass, we will add cobalt and lapis. If you like, another way we can create a nice, really green glass is by adding uranium. Uranium in green glass will produce a glow in the dark. Does anybody have a different favorite color? Purple. Oh no, to make purple, we will add manganese. Manganese, and by adding a lot of manganese, we can create black glass. Do we have a different favorite color? To create pink. All right. If you like pink, can you raise your hand if your favorite color is pink or red? Pink or red, raise your hand. Because if you have your hand raised, you are very special. You are unique. You have expensive taste. To make red and pink glass, we add gold. Gold and clear glass makes this beautiful red and pink, and which makes it some of the more expensive color in the glass industry. With that said, we're going to jump right back into the glass making action. We're going to be filling this mold. All right, so this is that moment. We're going to go ahead and get ready to fill our piece. We have Courtney Bram, again, a glass maker with over 25 years. We have a camera crew down here. We're going to make sure you get a nice view of this action going on. We'll come right on over. It's all about the heat. Remember, we can only use this mold one time for this process. If we don't like how the glass looks, we can break the glass free and reuse the mold, but that means we'd have to get rid of all this beautiful pattern that we've worked quite a long time to accomplish. We can continue to blow air to expand our bubble to all small nooks and crannies. So the next step we will take for our beautiful piece is to set it into the annealer. To break this piece free, we'll use a little bit of water, a little tap, and on its way to the annealer to slowly cool down. Again, if we leave the glass out here, it will get too cold, too fast. It can break, crack, and even explode. And just like that, we complete the first piece of the day. Let's give our whole crew a round of applause. Of course, our gaffer here today was Courtney. We give Greg down there. And last but not least, can we give a round of applause to our visiting artist, KT Hancock? She is a mastermind behind all this artwork. Notice they're already jumping right back on it. KT's letting them know what exactly can go better. What can we do better to make this piece even better? And this is what glassblowing is all about. Teamwork and communication, understanding what the artist wants, and as a glassmaker, how to approach that and how to exactly make that. Nearly after every piece we create here today, you will see this, the gaffer talking to KT, explaining what could go better. With that said, on our top screen, we are going to play some images of KT's work so we can understand what this piece will look like when it's complete and how it will be displayed. If you want to see some of KT's work, you can see it locally at Bellevue Art Museum, where some of her artwork is currently being displayed. So Dan has gathered glass and essentially blown an air bubble. We're going to place color right on top of this bubble. Once that is complete and we have gathered enough glass, we will fill that cup we made earlier with that beautiful pattern that looks like brick and mortar. Eventually, once that is complete and both pieces have joined together, we will stuff our mold that we have here. And remember, this mold can only be used once. So this flat piece of glass that we've pulled here, we're gonna use later on. Essentially, it's just clear glass that we can pick up a nice pattern on. This way, when we pick up our beautiful pattern you see down that their team is working on, we're not gonna waste any of it. Rather, we're gonna pick up our color on this piece of glass, just so we can maximize our pattern. That's all it is. So the team will begin on that. I believe down on that left-hand side, we're gonna begin to gather the amount of glass necessary to fill our cup. On our top screen, however, you're seeing the beautiful pattern the team is laying out to use. Our pattern has entered the garage. This is the place where it's going to begin to preheat. We are going to bring that beautiful pattern out here shortly, but before we do that, we want to ensure that it's going to be nice and warm. If you're wondering what that pattern will look like, well, we see some of the chunks being cut down here. This is the exact pattern that we will use. Later on, we'll pick this pattern up, and we'll see all those small, beautiful colors that we have added. Oh yeah, so this action is going to be happening hopefully within 15 minutes. We're going to roll up this pattern. All right. So what's going on right here, what's happening is we have the cup, that beautiful cup with that beautiful pattern. We're going to set it right on this ring that we have down here. Now we're going to try to get a camera in here so we can show we get a nice view of it and see this process going on. Dan has that molten glass layer. We'll take a little bit of water, broken free, off the rod. And then as Dan comes over, we'll begin to fill our cup. So down here we have Greg heating up this plate of glass. We're ensuring that the glass is not sticking to the plate. Remember, it's lined with a little bit of kiln wash. So it is now time to put these pieces together. So down here on the center of the hot shop, we'll be rolling our beautiful pattern up here. Again, we have this beautiful pattern. Courtney down here on this end is getting that core nice and hot.
Did you go to the burn or did you get all natural? Yeah, baby. Yeah, so yeah. Like, and we're done? I mean, how many pounds of mushrooms can you eat? Well, oh, buddy.
I need to learn.
Yeah, well, you need to do it. So, like, the thing is, the ones that you want are real easy to identify.
Well, do we have any questions from our audience? Any questions about the process you are now seeing here at the Museum of Glass? Again, my name is David. You can raise your hand or shout my name, and I am more than happy to share my glassmaking experience with you. And also my knowledge of what's going on down here. So we had a question about the pieces that we see on both pedestals or both ends of the hot shop. These are separate pieces. They're not going to be joined together. But on our top screen here, I'm going to show you some of KT's artwork. So what this process will eventually look like. Now, we are experimenting with different patterns and techniques. Again, down in the center, we'll be entering this mold, this house mold that we have down here. The pattern that we have looks like brick and mortar. Down in the center, we'll be filling up the gem that you see down here. So this is what we're going to be entering later on with the amount of glass that Courtney has. Eventually, we'll gather sufficient amount of glass, however. But again, these pieces are separate. Notice that we're giving ourselves the basic shape of our house mold down here. This just makes it easier for the glass to expand in all the nooks and crannies. A quick dry run ensures that everything looks good. All right, so we're using this torch right now, and notice we're torching the very back end portion. The reason we're doing that is because this tip will always get hotter before the back does. which means that tip will want to blow out before the back portion does. And to ensure that we're going to have an even heat, we've been torching that very back portion. Now, the crew that you see here is dedicated to the visiting artist, KT. The way our Monday, Tuesday featured artist works is that we invite an artist like KT to come out. All she needs to bring is the team that she wants working for her, and also any color that she might want to work with. She can have as much clear glass as she wants. All she needs to focus on is her artwork. So again, all the glass makers you see here are contracted by our visiting artist. However, we do have some of the crew members down here that are part of the museum crew, as we see down in the center. Courtney Bram. If you ever come to the Museum of Glass, you might see Courtney working with the museum crew. He is technically part of our hot shop. We also have Nick Davis down on the right-hand side. Nick Davis is our hot shop tech. So Nick will maybe take care of something that might need to be taken care of, or if we need a special tool made, well, Nick can gear that up for us also. This piece will be cooling down for the next 24 hours. If we leave it out here, it'll simply get too cold too fast. All right, and that makes one of our pieces. Can we give a round of applause to the hot shop crew working on that side again? Dan Friday down here working on the hot shop floor. And last but not least, can we give another round of applause to our visiting artist, KT Hancock? She is the mastermind behind all this that you see here today. If you're just joining us now, welcome to the Museum of Glass. We thank you for joining our morning live glassmaking demonstration. We are going to continue this glassmaking fun down here on this hot shop floor. This piece that you see here will be made into a cup. Once this cup is complete, we'll set it into our garage. Now, if you're wondering what that pattern looks like, well, we have some examples to show you exactly what that pattern will look like. So it's down here in this bucket. When they get dry, you see the saw marks, but essentially this is what the pattern will look like, very repetitive. Right now, it is looking a lot red and orange. That is due to the heat distorting the true color of the glass, but once it has cooled down properly, we will then see that true color in them. The color was added very early in the process, and these were actually made last Monday. Now, essentially, the color is made by adding different metals to the periodic table of elements. Different metals will produce a different color. So if you like blue, we might add cobalt. If you like green, we might add chromium, iron, or even uranium. Pink and red glass tend to be made from gold. Now, gold added to clear glass gives you this beautiful red and pink, which makes it some of the more expensive color in the glass industry. But again, it's specifically metals that give us color. So what happens when they make color is we actually don't make color here. It's actually made overseas in other parts of the country. But essentially, how it's made is that they fill a furnace and they might add, let's say we're making blue glass. Well, we will add the cobalt to our furnace, mix it around, and our whole tank will be blue. Then they pull that out and make these long bars of glass that you see here. Typically, those furnaces have a plug on the very bottom where it can exit and they can extrude it. We could technically do that at this museum, but that means we would be only working with one color, which might be cool, but after a while, everything will be that same color. So by melting clear glass, we're giving ourselves the ability to work with the full range of the color spectrum rather than one color. So our cup is going to be entering the garage now. It's going to stay nice and warm there till we are ready. We're going to bring it out on the second half of the day, and we'll introduce it to the mold we have here. This does conclude our morning live glass making demonstration, but we will be back in about 1 hour. And we can continue the glass making fun then. The blowing part, well, that's going to continue and resume after, but glass blowing has a very misleading name. We're not always blowing. It's actually a very small portion. It just happens to be that's the name that stuck with the medium. A better name would be glass making rather than glass blowing, because we're not always blowing through the rod. Sometimes pieces are solid. Technically, it's still called glass blowing, even though there's no blowing it. So, yeah, it's a very misleading name. Thank you so much for joining us.